Hello and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia, Amane's route. In the last episode, we ventured through Amane's memories of the second day lost in the valley back home from a basketball trip, along with Yuuji's sister Kazuki. Let's continue. Third day in the valley. When society slumps into an economic recession, it seems high-achieving graduates from elite universities often have an even harder time finding employment than their less brilliant peers. Normally, you'd think business facing difficult times would want skilled new employees to help them turn things around, but when a company is focused entirely on treading water and protecting the status quo, providing good positions for intelligent and ambitious new hires can be very difficult. And if you're just going to be wasting hotshot talent on trivial chores, might as well just hire cheaper, less skilled workers to start off with. Or so the thinking goes. As for why I'm bringing this up all of a sudden, it recently occurred to me that Kazuki's situation within our team is something like that of an elite graduate in recession. She has exceptional, even unique skills. In terms of raw abilities, she's in a different league from Captain Shakashita. But since her rank is freshman, the very bottom of the totem pole, that talent puts her in an awkward position. Everyone recognizes and respects Kazuki's intelligence, but that doesn't mean they are ready to overturn our familiar system of authority, mainly because nobody knows where they'd stand in a new pecking order. Kazuki told me that pride isn't inherently a bad thing. The way she sees it, a moderate sense of self-respect can be a balm for the soul. But still, an overdose of medicine is just another way of poisoning yourself. Amane, where are you? Amane? Over here, Kazuki. Ah, so that's where you got into. Writing in that diary again, are you? Yeah, what can I say? It's a habit, I guess. I just scribble down the stuff that pops into my mind when I have some free time, that's all. Well, I approve. Precisely because we're in such an extraordinary situation. Keeping up with familiar routines you can has a valuable calming effect. And keeping a diary in particular is an opportunity for focused consideration of recent events, which often helps you gain an objective and rational perspective on your situation. I believe the act has meaning in its own right. It's not like I was really writing it with any of that stuff in mind, you know? That's what a diary is, whether you know it or not. I often keep one myself. You do? Yes, although I don't write it on paper. What is that supposed to mean? It means my diary is stored entirely in my mind. Wait, so you're writing down the stuff inside your head? Inside your head? I've got one brain for common memory storage function and another specifically designated for preserving diaries. From what the doctors tell me, I have 5 distinct brains up there, maybe 6. Seriously? It's a joke, of course. As always, Kazuki's attempt at a joke wasn't amusing in the slightest. The idea of her having half a dozen brains stashed away somewhere like a biological supercomputer felt far too plausible. I felt more like shuddering than laughing. Okay, so, did you need me for something? Ah, that's right. Do you think you could go pick me some chameleon plant leaves? Chameleon plant leaves? That really smelly weed with the little flowers? That's right, there was quite a lot of it growing wild by the stream, wasn't there? I'd like you to pick me some. Don't tell me we're going to eat that stuff. Well, I think it's edible in a pinch, but this time we're using it for medicinal purposes. Medicine? What kind? An anti-itch remedy. Our stock of medicine is growing severely low, so we need to begin preparing substitutes where we can. If possible, some mugwort would be nice as well. Mugwort? Isn't that the stuff they mix in those bright green dumplings? What kind of plant is it? You've never seen any? It's very commonplace wild herb almost anywhere in the country. I might not look it, but I'm a city kid, you know? I made mugwort dumpling in a restaurant, but we use pre-processed paste, so... That's unfortunate. Oh well. Kazuki pursed her lips and glanced around the area. Her gaze settled on Koichi's Ritsu, who was sitting idly on top of a rock nearby, apparently not quite sure what to do with herself. Koichi-san, I'd like you to go pick some herbs with my partner. Could you perhaps head to the big tent and look after Hiroka-san and Sakurai-san while I'm gone? Oh, okay, but don't worry, it shouldn't be too troublesome a task. You just need to wipe the sweat and give them a little water at regular intervals. Would you be so kind? I'll be back very soon. Alright. Okay then, shall we go? Are you sure about this? What do you mean? I mean, Koide-san's... She was Captain Sakashida's partner. If our leader were to find out Kazuki had been ordering her friend around, I had the feeling things might get ugly again. I don't see the problem. She didn't seem to have anything else to do now, did she? And considering our circumstances, having nothing productive to do probably feels rather awkward. I imagine she's fairly relieved not to be sitting around looking like a shirker. Ah, yeah. Our supply of food was limited and shrinking. Under the circumstances, idle hand could be seen as a drain on our resources. The sick and injured had no choice, but for those of us still healthy, there wasn't much excuse for being anything less than proactive. Koide-senpai's partner, Captain Sakashida, was currently off investigating the area with Mr. Ochi. Why hadn't they taken Koide along on their survey? Did they simply decide she would have slowed them down? I couldn't think of any other reason they would just ditch her here. Hey, why do you think they left her behind, Kazuki? Let's see, perhaps the captain's simply displeased with Koide-san at the moment? Why would she be? On our first day here, as I was preparing to treat the wounded, I asked Koide-san to bring some water to a boil, did I not? Yeah, you did. And Koide-san used some of our bottled mineral water for the purpose, without first asking the captain's permission. When the captain snapped at her about it, I do believe Koide-san answered, but Kazamis-san told me to do it. Ah, in other words, the captain didn't like the way she referred to you as a greater authority, right? That's correct. By obeying my order without question, I think Koide-san may have earned herself the label of enemy sympathizer, as far as the captain is concerned. Unbelievable. What a thing to worry about at a time like this. I believe the captain herself understands she can't very well make her displeasure explicit right now, but she most likely can't help feeling irritated. It's just the way girls are, wouldn't you say? Well, maybe so. Female friendships tend to be power-based. Specifically when girls choose their friends, they pick someone they think of as an inferior. A girl inferior in academics, a girl inferior in appearance, a girl inferior at sports. Anything will do as long as they are clear inferior in some respect. We can graciously and confidently allow them to become a friend. I'll let you become a friend out of the goodness of my heart, and this is how you repay me? If you like that other girl's orders better, why don't you just be her friend now? Something along those lines, perhaps? But if that's the problem, why isn't the captain angry at anybody else too? When you get right down to it, everyone's doing what you tell them. Doing what I tell them? I'm not sure that's exactly the right way to put it. If we implemented a plan, the individual who proposed it would assume responsibility for its success. I offered the alternative of putting things on a hold for a while. I think everyone may have simply defaulted to agreeing out of reluctance to commit themselves to taking action. You think? I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone thinks you're a genius, Kazuki. I think we all figured your advice wouldn't lead us wrong. I believe I've already told you, but I dislike being called a genius. Don't get the idea it's a title to be jealous of, alright? When you become a genius, what you gain isn't admiration so much as envy and enemies. That right? Yes, it is. That would be the reason I have no friends. I'm quite glad I finally managed to find a tolerant and persevering young lady like yourself, Amane. Thanks, I guess. So Kazuki, you seriously didn't have any friends? Well, she definitely didn't have the most outgoing personality. I couldn't picture her going out and trying to make a friend. I'd spent the most of 3 days glued to her by now, but if not for that accident, it was hard to imagine we would have gotten to know each other like this. If you stopped with the mocking body language and the ruthless honesty, and the way you never let an argument drop, I think you'd be able to make some friends. In other words, you're telling me to become a different person entirely. Well, I guess you could look at it that way. At this point, wouldn't such a change leave everyone more disturbed than anything else? Doesn't it get lonely? I've got you at the moment, and I have my little brother. I don't think of myself as particularly lonely. Kazuki, you have a brother? Yes, I do indeed. So, what? Does he take after you? Not especially, to be perfectly honest. Unlike me, he resembles a mother, so I guess you could say his kindness is the element that stands out. He's a sweet little thing. Really? So, is he crazy smart too? I wonder. I don't think he's stupid, but he's overly honest and rather awkward. And since he's my younger brother, he can't escape being compared against me. As a result, a bit of hard work isn't enough to earn him much in the way of recognition, I'm afraid. He seems to be growing quite self-conscious about it lately. I see. Not surprising, I guess. Kazuki would be one incredibly hard act to follow. Everyone would naturally be expecting great things of her brother. Held up against the standard of his elder sister, the best achievements of a normal person would seem commonplace, and most you could hope for a tepid just what I'd expect from Kazuki's brother. But any minor mistake would get you a disappointed look that might as well be saying, "Are you really related to that genius?" I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy. That must be pretty rough. Avoid the temptation to pity him, it only makes me feel all the more miserable. Yeah, sorry. There are certainly many people who have expressed disappointment in my brother, his own parents among them. But he's very important to me and I love him very much. The rest is noise. Even if everyone else in the world despises him, it wouldn't change the fact that I love him more than anything else. That's going a little overboard. You're talking about your little brother here, you know? Is it that odd? Well, I do understand my feelings are somewhat at the extreme end of the spectrum, but surely a big sister who's sweet on her little brother isn't so rare. Sweet? You? Sweet? I'd always viewed Kazuki as something like a walking beaker of acid in school uniform. Sweet struck me as the single least appropriate adjective you could possibly apply to her. What's so surprising about that? It's only natural to be affectionate toward your little brother, wouldn't you say? For what it's worth, I do try to my best to be a kind elder sister. Out of character. Totally, absolutely, disturbingly out of character. Kazuki, the girl who'd probably take one look at the classic abandoned puppy in a cardboard box on a rainy day till fate is cruel, I suggest you curse the heavens and then walk right off without batting an eyelid. Kazuki, of all people, a doting big sister? I impulsively pulled my cell phone out of my pocket and checked the date. Huh? It's not April 1st today, right? You're being exceptionally rude. I'm a human being, you know. Of course I care about my brother. When he's troubled, I try to comfort him, however clumsily, like any decent sister would. No kidding. Kazuki was such a dry-eyed, tough-minded person that I guess I figured she was above any form of deep emotional attachment. To be honest, I could easily imagine her looking down on her newborn brother in a hospital incubator, muttering something like, "What do you think you're doing? I don't recall giving you permission to be born. You've thrown off my plans, whelp." Excuse me, you're perhaps thinking something astoundingly rude at the moment. I gotta say, I love Kazuki's scolding look here. They've really got that if eyes could pierce down with the animation. It looks amazing. Nope, not at all. Nothing to see here. When Kazuki fixed those inky black eyes on me, it felt as though she was glaring right through my skull and into my thoughts. Flustered, I shook my head in denial. Hey, is your little brother really as cute as all that? I'd say so. It's often difficult to resist the urge to kiss him. Hearing all this was getting me a little interested in seeing him for myself. I've given in to that temptation countless times by now, but kissing him never seems to get old. Huh? Giving into temptation? Kissing her brother? Ah, on the cheek or something, right? I didn't have any brothers, so I didn't quite get it, but maybe that wasn't too out of the ordinary for a close pair of siblings. He really is adorable, you see. Somehow the smile on Kazuki's face didn't seem particularly innocent. What? Even for a close pair of siblings, no, especially for a close pair of siblings, wasn't that a little abnormal? Just what was this girl doing to her brother? Is something wrong? Your face has turned rather red. Hey, if I started giving you a lecture on, morality, would you just laugh me off? That would have been entirely on what you have to say. Kazuki's way of showing her affection for her sibling was clearly wrong. I never expected to be explaining a fundamentalist mistake like this to her, of all people. When I gently prodded her for more information, I soon discovered she was still taking baths with her brother. While Kazuki's body wasn't exactly well developed, she did have curves in the right places. Bathing with your brother at that age is more than a little dicey, right? Even at the best of times, the love between a brother and sister is built on a fairly precarious balance, and Little Miss Genius here had definitely taken things well beyond the tipping point. Skirting around the larger issue, I gingerly pushed the conversation along by hinting that the bath really needed to stop, prompting her to inquire, is sleeping together at night also off limits, in a slightly dejected tone of voice. And when I went soft, mumbling something about maybe every once in a while, she fired off a cheerful, and it's okay to give him specific lessons on the birds and bees, right? Hey, mind if I ask you something? To be honest, I feel a little silly asking a question like this to the infamous prodigy Kasami Kazuki, but I just can't help myself. I'm burning with curiosity. Here goes. Hey, might you be completely out of your mind? Okay, look, this is the only way of life I know really isn't helping me deal with this, you know. Can you cut a girl a break here? I mean, hasn't anybody warned you about this before? For example, your mom or something? Now that you mention it, when we were younger, I seem to remember her saying, make sure you don't do that outside. So it's okay at home? It sounds like their mother made some mistakes here as well. Some pretty fundamental ones, actually. It wasn't hard to imagine Kazuki's home must have been an unusual place, since it wasn't the environment that produced a super genius. But this freakish lack of common sense was well beyond my expectations. Anyway, it's just wrong. At this rate, there's no way your little brother is going to grow up into a decent person, you know. You think? I do take his upbringing quite seriously in my own way. Do I even want to ask what that means? I've been raising him into a young man who can say a proper thank you. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. It's a wonderful thing to be able to honestly express your gratitude to another, don't you think? I guess. Think of it this way. Your little catchphrase, I'm sorry, is a valuable thing when judiciously applied, isn't it? Being able to swallow your pride and apologize when you've caused someone trouble is a wonderful thing. Well, maybe so. I wasn't trying to make it my catchphrase, but I was taught from a young age that if you think you did something bad, apologize first and make excuses later. It was a major pillar of vinegary education in manners I've received from my mom. This is no different. People who can offer thanks to others will have a happier road through life than those who can't. Don't you agree? True enough. It may be a subtle difference as often as not. But if you can remember to show your gratitude in small ways, never taking the goodwill of others for granted, your life will probably end up ever so slightly the richer for it. Huh? Kazuki? Did you actually say something kind of profound just now? You really are rather rude today. When are my words anything but profound? If you collected all my pithy remarks, I expect the collected wisdom of Kasami Kazuki would sell quite nicely at 1,890 yen price point, tax included. What with the depressingly realistic markdown period pricing? What publisher would make a hardcover edition of that anyway? I could just picture it. Chapter 1, taking a bath with your little brother is not a crime. Maybe the better question is, what's the target audience for a book written by a woman who sexually harassed her own little brother? A bath, huh? Come to think of it. It had already been 3 days since the last time I washed myself. 3 days I had spent in a humid ravine wearing the same unwashed school uniform. I pinched my clothes and brought my fingers to my nose, then quickly jerked my head back at the raw, sharp body odor they carried. Nasty. Hey, Kazuki, do I smell? As long as people are alive, they are sweating and shedding skin. At the moment, your scent is somewhat reminiscent of a chameleon plant, or perhaps a muggy midsummer subway platform. Oh, gross. I want to take a bath. A supply of water is hardly a problem, so why not take a dip? Sakuma-san, for one, came up to me and inquired about the possibility immediately after we found the spring. Huh? Is that okay? It certainly is. In fact, neglecting our hygiene might give rise to skin disease or the like. And given that fact, we've already obtained blanket permission from the captain, so there's no political problems either. I've bathed several times myself and found the water quite pleasant. Hey, why didn't you tell me about this? Or invite me along for that matter? We're a pair, right? Well, because I don't want to be naked next to you, of course. Can you imagine the misery of a minicar parked next to a luxury sports sedan? Why a car analogy? I figured it would be easy for you to understand. I mean, what's the problem with minicars? I love them, for your information. They are cheap and easy to maintain for one thing, but more importantly they are incredibly light, and a wise man once said, when it comes to turning, nothing beats a low-weight car, you know. I think Amane didn't quite catch the analogy here. So, is this why I noticed you disappearing every once in a while, Kazuki? You were sneaking off to take a secret bath? I didn't particularly sneak anywhere, but no matter. After we gather the medicinal plants, how about you go straight to the spring and take a bath? Sounds like a plan. A bath sounded fantastic, but we had other priorities. While picking the mugwort and chameleon plants we planned to use for medicinal purposes, Kazuki and I took the opportunity to search for vegetation that looked edible. It was the third day of our imprisonment in this ravine. Perhaps in the very beginning, we assumed the vibrant mass of nature that trapped us here would also provide us with a steady supply of wild vegetables, but that optimism evaporated the moment we actually began to explore the jungle. True, carefully surveying the woods turned up something in the way of edible-looking vegetation, but the vast majority were fern sprouts, honeywort, chrysanthemum greens, and other leafy plants. More garnish than main course, none of them could fill the bellies of a group of growing teenagers. As an added bonus, pretty much all of these wild grasses and flowers proved strongly unpalatable. Eaten raw, they were unbelievably bitter, and most gave off a sharp, nasty scent. Even when boiled, the harsh, caustic taste of lye usually remained. Seasoning to disguise the flavor was an absolute necessity. The first of our supplies to vanish was the curry powder. Thanks to its strong smell and powerful taste, it violently drowned out the taste of any individual ingredient. It was our magic pixie dust, transforming anything into a tolerable meal. On the day of the fall, we'd each been distributed 2 tiny single-serving packets of curry powder to last us 3 days. Even combining my share with Kazuki's, our 4 packets didn't amount to much at all. Although Kazuki had entrusted me with all of our precious supply of food, she got downright angry when I tried to make curry croquettes using the powder and some potatoes. She was always strictly lecturing me about keeping our portions small as possible, but any ingredient containing anything in the way of salt was a particular obsession. Her argument: sodium can't be produced inside the human body, therefore ingesting it from the outside is absolutely necessary. I think there was a Chinese professor who extracted raw minerals from plants and refined them into salt, wasn't there? Huh? What are you talking about all of a sudden? Maybe there was and maybe there wasn't. I don't have a clue. I just now remembered that I had read something of the sort in a young adult science magazine, but unfortunately I believe a large amount of raw plant materials and fairly sophisticated processing equipment was necessary. Is salt really that important? Right now your body is still working through your reserves of sodium, so it's managing to cope with the shortage, but if the situation drags on and our state of malnutrition advances, our need for salt will eventually become dire. So for now I want to stockpile as much as possible. Well, for what it's worth, I've been doing like you've said. I go really light on the salt. I had half of our initial supply away and haven't touched it. Keep that hidden until the very end, and do not under any circumstances tell anyone that you've done so. Okay, if you say so. What's the point of having salt if there's no food to put it on? If anything, it seemed like we should have to be stockpiling stuff that could fill our stomachs, not a condiment. Since the fall, we'd be getting by on potatoes, carrots, and the weedy vegetation we picked from the forest. Without any meat or rice in our diet, we were starved for protein and carbohydrates alike. If we had to make a meal cut out of these scraggly bitter plants, I'd at least have liked to stir-fry them with a little crumbled bacon, flavored with a generous helping of butter and soy sauce, and steaming white rice on the side. That's right, rice. We still had a supply of that being held in reserve, didn't we? On the second day of our training camp, heavy rain had cancelled our plan to cook a big curry dinner outdoors. We'd been eating many of the ingredients from that meal, but not the rice it would have been served on. In other words, we had 5 kilograms sack of perfectly good rice sitting in a tent somewhere. Just when were they planning to distribute that? There was no point in whining about bacon when we didn't have any, but I wanted some rice pretty badly. A nice fluffy bowl on the side would make a main dish of fried wheat seem a lot more tolerable. And if we had some shimei mushrooms to throw in, it would be... Ah, mushrooms! Pardon me? Hey Kazuki, what about mushrooms? They grow just fine in the mountains, right? Let's hunt for mushrooms. I would advise strongly against that. Mushrooms are dangerous. Come on, I bet you are able to tell the poisonous kind from the edible kind, Kazuki. I have a certain amount of knowledge from my reading, but mushrooms vary widely by region and I have no practical experience. Gathering mushrooms with nothing but a book as a guide is an excellent way to poison yourself. Such cases are all too common in modern times. Mushrooms are off limits. I remember hearing that mushrooms with straight vertical gills are okay to eat though. That's an old wives' tale. There are quite a number of mushrooms with neatly vertical gills that are fatally poisonous. I don't blame you for the thought, but stay away from mushrooms. Aw, it seemed like such a good idea. Well, I suppose you could always feed a few to a girl you dislike. If she doesn't start vomiting up blood within 2 or 3 days, we can all eat the rest. That joke is seriously bad taste. What joke? Although she smiled lightly, Kazuki's voice wasn't amused in the slightest. She was quite seriously and neutrally informing me of a potential exchange. If we wanted edible mushrooms, we would have to sacrifice someone first. At the moment, we had edible plants, unappetizing as they might be. There was no need to risk death for the sake of a few mushrooms. But if we were to eat up all the shoots and flowers and herbs, where was our next meal going to come from? If we were forced to eat mushrooms, who takes the first bite? A road to survival we couldn't follow yet, a road not all of us could travel. Was Kazuki thinking of something like this when she spoke those words? Yesterday morning, had she already predicted that I would suggest gathering mushrooms? All of a sudden her steady voice seemed strangely cold. I suppressed the urge to shiver. None of us want to die, now do we? Come, let's finish up here and be on our way. And with those words, Kazuki bent down and began to put away the plants we had gathered in the mess kit rice cooker we were using as makeshift bucket. Yeah. None of us want to die. Those brief, perfectly obvious words sent a cold shock through my body. None of us were hiding our grief or anxiety particularly well anymore. Everyone was nervous. Everyone was scared. But I realized something from the spasm of terror I felt in that moment. Somewhere deep inside, we were probably still in denial. We were still optimistically averting our eyes from the cruel reality. And since that is the end of the third day, that is also the end of this episode. So we shall see how... So where the second day was very much eventful, the third day was not so much. But I suppose not all that happened was worthy of writing down in a diary, which is essentially what this part of the story is showing. So until next time, take care.